Welcome back, Byron Eagles. Again, I hope everybody's healthy and staying safe. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the methods of business ownership or the organization of business. With three goals in mind. First of all, we'll talk about a sole proprietorship and what are the advantages and disadvantages of a sole proprietorship. We'll talk about a partnership and again, describe the advantages and disadvantages of a partnership. And then we'll talk a little bit about a corporation. What does it mean to be incorporated and what are some of those characteristics? But first, I want to break down just a little bit. The three that we talked about, again, were sole proprietorship, are going to talk about our sole proprietorship, kind of an individual ownership, a partnership, just like it sounds, there's a partner usually involved, two or more, maybe a small family, and then the incorporation of the corporations. So breaking down business ownership in the United States, you can see we have a lot of sole proprietorships, individuals, roughly 72% making up the business ownership in the US, 20% of that of corporations, and about 8% partnership. Starting with sole proprietorship. What is a sole proprietorship? Well, a sole proprietorship, just like it sounds, an individual owns the business. Just one. Some of the advantages of a sole proprietorship would be the fact that starting a business is fairly simple. There's some paperwork that's involved. For the most part, though, you come up with an idea, you have something that you think is going to be good. There'll be a high demand for it. Again, whether it's mowing lawns to fixing diesel engines, whatever it may be. The ease of starting that, especially in the United States, is one of the advantages of a sole proprietorship. The freedom to make your own decisions, how much you want to charge, how many hours you're going to work, who you're going to work for. All of those things also are advantages to the sole proprietorship. The owner, you, the individual, the sole proprietor, gets to keep all of the profit. And then the fact that you simply started a business on your own, worked really hard, maybe you were successful. That pride that comes along with the ownership is also an advantage. So more mental than physical. Disadvantages of a sole proprietorship. Limited sources, financial resources are probably going to be limited for an individual as opposed to somebody who goes into a partnership or has, a corporation or something where they get some funding from somebody else. Oftentimes in a sole proprietorship, it's on you to take out the loan or use your own money. Long hours, tedious long hours, hard work, especially in the initial phases of trying to start the business, spreading the word, marketing, advertising. The risk involved are unlimited. Anything that goes wrong, again, is going to be on you, the sole proprietor. You have to be the one that's going to figure it out, navigate all of those risks, all of the problems, and determine whether or not it's worth putting more investment and more time into this business that you've created. And if it fails or you end up going bankrupt, again, that risk, that unlimited risk is on you, the sole proprietor. And then the life of the business oftentimes is going to be tied to your life. As a sole proprietor, you're the owner of the business. Again, if you choose to stop or something were to happen or you die, whatever it may be, the business will more than likely come to an end as well, unless you were to, write it off in a will to somebody else or somebody else inherits the business. So basically the life of the business is also limited to that of the sole proprietor. So that would be another disadvantage of a sole proprietorship. Our second organization, our second type of business is a partnership. Just like it sounds, it's typically going to be two or more individuals, maybe a family who join together and create a business. The advantages of a partnership, again, the idea, the creation of that business or that partnership, fairly easy. You and a friend, you and a family member, you and your family decide you're going to open a restaurant, you're going to create a convenience store, whatever it is. Typically fairly easy as far as the creation of the partnership, one of the advantages. Some of the additional sources of funding Now you have somebody else, maybe a couple individuals, whom you can pool resources together in which you will be allowed to use as additional resources in the funding of your partnership or your new business. That too would be an advantage of a partnership. The availability of different talents. So not only your mind, but the mind of other individuals, or maybe you're really good at something, but you're not very good at something else. Well, hopefully the partner that you join the business with is better at something that so their strengths are your weaknesses and vice versa. So the availability of different talents, different minds, different thoughts would be an advantage in a partnership. As far as disadvantages of the partnership, the partners are also liable. So if something were to go wrong, now you have to decide, are we going to point fingers? Who's to blame? I'm liable just as much as you are. So if my partner does something wrong at the business, says something wrong, has a problem, I also am going to be liable. So that would be a disadvantage in a partnership. Profits. If we were to make a profit, we were a successful business, we now have to share the profits. Oftentimes there'll be a contract involved in which you'll talk about whether it's going to be 50-50 or whatnot. But for the most part, any money that comes in, you're going to have to share among the owners, the several owners of that business or that partnership. The potential for disagreement among others, especially if it's a family or a friend whom you go into partnership with. If there is a disagreement about how something should be done, or if you're starting to have some issues, maybe financially, oftentimes there will be disagreements. The potential for those disagreements escalates under a partnership, obviously, because it's not just you. So that too would be a disadvantage. And the fact that the business could disappear, dissolve suddenly. Again, oftentimes in a sole proprietorship, the life of the business may be attached to you and your potential in your life. But now with a partnership, things could go wrong. They could go south real quick. And maybe one of your friends decides they want to pull out of the business and they no longer be a partner. There goes the business. So the fact that the business can dissolve suddenly would also be a disadvantage in a partnership. And finally, we talk about corporation. A corporation basically is a business that has filed the letter of incorporation. So basically you fill out some paperwork, you become incorporated, and now you will be probably publicly owned, which means you'll start to sell stock in your company or your corporation. Some of the advantages of a corporation: you have more sources, more funds available, especially if you go public and people begin to invest, outsiders begin to invest in your company or corporation. It's going to allow for more funds, more resources, especially financially. However, there is a fixed financial liability to just that of the owners. So if you're an outsider who's invested in the company, or you're a member of the board of the corporation, you're not going to be liable. So the fixed financial liability will be that of the owners. Specialized management. Who is going to be in charge? Who's the CEO? Who's the CFO? The chief financial officer? Who's the person who's making the decisions? Again, you get to choose that as part of a corporation. You get to choose who the management's going to be, and you can hire experts in different fields. If you have somebody that's better at accounting, number crunching, maybe you make them your chief financial officer and put them in that position. And then unlimited life of the company. Again, after you're gone, if it's owned by other individuals who have invested or a board, more than likely the corporation will continue on even after you're gone. Or once you've retired or for some reason left the company or the corporation, the life of the company will continue on after you're gone. So it's pretty much unlimited. Some of the disadvantages of a corporation. As far as the creation process, it's going to be a little more difficult, because now you're going to have to make sure that many people, other individuals, are going to want to get involved and start to invest in whatever it is that you've created. So your creation has to be narrowed a little bit, and you have to make sure that there is a very high demand for whatever it is that you are creating or service that you are providing. The owners would have limited control in a corporation. Typically, you'll have a board, a board or members of a board who will sit and make decisions. Now, you will be probably a member of that board, but you will also have to listen to the outsiders and decide basically what is best now for your corporation, not for you, but for what the company or the corporation has created. What is the best things that we can do for that company or that corporation? So the owners would have limited control in that situation. Taxation. You're going to be taxed double. So basically, not only are you going to be a sole proprietor, but you're going to be taxed basically as a corporation, a franchisee, whatever it may be. You're going to be taxed not only through the local, but the state, federal government, and also individuals who maybe are a part of that. You're going to probably have to pay dividends to those people who are stockholders, people that have invested publicly in your stock or in your company or corporation. So as far as the financials that come in, you're probably going to receive more. But with that said, you're also going to be paying more in the end as far as taxation or dividends are going back and forth to the individuals who have invested in your company or your corporation. Multinational corporations or companies. So I'm sure you're familiar with the name multinational. Basically, it is in many nations. So anywhere in the globe that you go, you basically can find them. You can think of names, whether it be Nike, Microsoft, McDonald's, Ford, Exxon, you name it. If it's a company that you can think of that pretty much anywhere you go, many nations, multinational globally, that would be a multinational company or corporation. Multinational companies and corporations are in operations, again, in many nations, so pretty much anywhere in the globe. The characteristics of these, again, you're going to have a worldwide market view. So again, you have to look at the cultures and understand where you're located and what the people are like in that area or that region of the world. So you have to have more of a worldwide market view and understanding on a multinational scale. As far as your product, it has to be more standardized. You have to, again, take what you know, kind of narrow it down and make sure that who you are dealing with or who your target market is in that region of the world, make sure that they understand. So again, if I'm a McDonald's and I'm in the Middle East, and for the majority of the people there, their culture, they are Muslim by religion, and they typically don't eat beef because the cow is more sacred. Then you have to make sure that if you're selling burgers to those people as maybe a member of McDonald's or Burger King, that you probably don't include beef in your burgers because, again, the cow is sacred and that'd be sacrilegious and that would be frowned upon. So you have to kind of understand the culture and make sure that your product is more standardized based on a worldwide market view. And again, here we go, as far as cultural sensitivity, making sure that not only that you understand the culture, the religion, and the people and the language, but when it comes to hiring, also be sensitive to the culture when hiring in different parts of the world. Understanding that there will be a different perspective as far as the government and the region and part of the world that you're located. And again, on an international scale, a multinational scale, you have to be able to deal with different companies and corporations that are also involved who may be part of the competition and come up mutually with some sort of agreement so that you can work collaboratively or work with a local perspective that's going to be beneficial for all on an international scale. Some of the concerns about multinational companies, I already touched on them, but again, a lot of people might go back to the United States and the fact that if you're an international or multinational company, that you look to outsource. So maybe you're putting a plant in Mexico because you can hire them at a lesser wage and so forth. And you're taking jobs from Americans. So you have to be, it's very sensitive. You have to be very, very careful when it comes to be creating a multinational company, that you're not upsetting others, especially if your base or your kind of your foundation, your creation is here in the United States, and now you've got companies in Mexico and parts of Europe and South America, maybe some in Africa. Make sure that you understand that there are going to be concerns about these multinational companies. If I were to break down sales based on the method or the organization, the different type of business organization, and ownership, as of right now, the big names, again, corporations are going to make about 88%. If you're talking shoes, again, you're going to go through your Nikes, you're going to go to your New Balance, Reebok, Brooks, whatever it may be, Asics. Again, many of our products that we buy, most of the products that we buy, methods of our business, our sales, come from a corporation. 80% coming from partnerships, and again, about 4% coming from our sole proprietors, our individuals who have created their own business. Additional forms or other forms of business organizations, some that we'll talk about in the future. We'll talk a little bit about municipalities and the municipal corporations, nonprofit organizations, everything from the Red Cross to a corporation, charitable means, a nonprofit organization like NPR or PBS, and then your co-ops, your cooperatives, the food cooperatives of the world. So these would be some of the other forms of organizations and additional business practices. Again, I'm hoping that everybody's staying safe and staying healthy. And I'll talk to you again next week. Thank you for listening.